Hello, everyone. I'm Juan de Dios Collado. Welcome to our channel, Vets for Unity Voices of Valor. Today, I wanted to come and discuss the current administration or the coming administration. How do you feel about it? How veterans' perspective feels about it? And we have some guests today. Well, currently we have one guest with us today, Chaylis Chesakova. We're gonna bring her on in a little bit, but before that, I wanted to apologize because I know I haven't created a lot of content for this channel recently since last year, and I had a lot of stuff going on. My work schedule is very busy from October to December, and also we had a lot of family issue. I unfortunately recently we had my sister passed away. She was struggling with cancer, and there's going to be a whole story to that, and I will share it with you later on. But it was a tough year for us last year. It has been very tough 3 years for us work wise, and we hope things change. But I apologize for not creating contents. Definitely, we're going to be working hard and bringing more veterans on board, doing interviews with veterans, telling their stories because we do value veterans' perspective. I think if we're going to fight for unity in this country, we should listen to the people that are willing to put their life in the line for this country, for the future of this nation. As you know, I came from a third world country, and I appreciate everything I have. All the opportunity that I have gotten in this great nation of the United States of America. And I'm a veteran myself, and that's why I wanted to contribute because I have seen that this country have gotten divided the last 10 years, I would say, and we want to do a small part to make a difference. But I know that all of you veterans can make a huge difference if we just speak up for unity. We have to respect everyone's opinion, but that's how we're going to be united by knowing and recognizing that everyone is going to have different opinions, but they don't have bad intentions. They don't necessarily have bad intentions. As long as we respect the freedom of speech of everyone, I think we can get along. And that's why today we have a few guests, some of them probably with different opinions than what I have, different political ideologies than I have. But that's what makes this country great, that we can disagree and we can still have a great conversation together. So let me go ahead. We're supposed to get a veteran also with us, Master Sergeant Luis Lopez. He's coming a little bit late, but we do have a friend of mine, Chaylis Chesakova. Let's bring her on. Hello, Chaylis. How are you? Thank you for being on.
I'm fine. Thank you for having me, Juan.
Great, great. Thank you for doing this. I know you have different perspective from what I have. A lot of people have been having fears about the coming administrations. I don't know exactly where you fall, if you're in the middle, if you're on the left, on the right, but we want to hear your opinion and we value your time and opinions. And I hope we can have a conversation, a friendly conversation. I have a lot of respect for you, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. I also wanted to have someone else, Lisbeth, who is a cousin of mine, to balance things out and have a different perspective. But she couldn't come today. But hopefully another time you and Lisbeth can have a discussion together with us. Charles is not a veteran, but I am a veteran, and we're gonna have Luis Lopez coming on hopefully a little later. Our promise to you is that we always gonna have at least one veteran on, but we need to hear from everybody, and the more we hear from the different perspective and agree to disagree, the better we're gonna be. So let's go ahead and start with this. Charles, how do you feel about the coming administration? Are you in fear or are you excited about the coming administration?
Ooh, I'm excited. That's an interesting word. I was once advised by a friend that the emotion that we experience of anxiety, which we usually translate as fear, is actually very similar chemically to excitement. And so it's really up to your perspective how you choose to translate this internal experience. Are you anxious thus fearful, or are you excited? I would lean towards excited, because there is a lot that is yet to be told, a lot that is yet to unfold, and there is a lot that needs to be done, and we're not going to be able to do it standing still. We have to do something different. We have to move forward, and change is the only way to improve.
So you don't sound fearful to me.
No, perhaps it's part of the job of the faithful to maintain faith in the face of anything. You can't let that shake your faith, otherwise you're not faithful. So
Sounds like you probably have kept yourself well informed and probably not rely on just one source of information. Uh, is that what I sense? Do you try to listen to both points of view usually?
I definitely try to listen to, if people are speaking to me, I don't care which camp you come from. If you want to speak, I will listen. But I don't actually seek out news whatsoever. I definitely am more of the type to actively avoid news and headlines, um, mostly because I've noticed with time, and I've watched news from very, very young, 7, 8 years old. I started actively watching. My favorite was Fox News at that time. But I came to realize with time that the news wasn't simply just reporting, they were gearing and angling, phrasing very particular things in very particular ways. And I'm not a fan of emotional manipulation, whether it's from a news outlet or whether it's from, people in my personal life. I don't like to engage in those games. But it's you reach that it's like a polar exchange. Am I going to be misinformed or uninformed? I don't think it's hard to stay somewhat informed, even if you're not looking for it. I don't have to look for news to hear about people being shot at or other catastrophic events, or any big changes in governance. But I don't find it very helpful for myself to remain constantly consuming information about possibilities. We might possibly have this kind of political person taking this possible action. I don't find that productive for myself.
Hmm. It's I don't know. I definitely would tell you that whenever I avoided news, I would say like I started watching more politics when Obama came on in 2008. I was very excited about what was coming. Uh, I listened to his victory speech, and I was very optimistic. I was a little disappointed, I have to tell you, with what happened after that, the division, Ferguson, and all that stuff, and everything that happened after that. I thought my criticism of Obama was that I was hoping he looks at the glass half full instead of half empty, because he was, as a black man, he became the president of the United States. What else can you ask for? And I thought he was gonna take that as telling African American, now now you could see that everything is possible in this country. But this is not about Obama today. So I want to ask you, going back to the previous administration, though, I know how you feel about this one. Do you feel that anything that Biden should have done differently, Biden and the Democrats, because as you know, now it's kind of a fact that Biden wasn't entirely in control of what was happening.
I don't know any presidency in the last 5, 6 presidents where the president was entirely. Actually, I'd say probably since not Nixon, since Reagan, I would have doubts of any president being so fully in control. There's a cabinet for a reason,
Hmm.
and they're not just advisors. They're hands doing things on various arrangements, various meetings, conferences, alliances, allegiances. Politics is a very messy game, because it's about people. It's not just about law. Law we see changes very slowly because it's set in stone. If you're going to carve out a new law, it takes time. But politics is the governance of people, and people are complicated.
Yeah,
um,
as we know in our own families, right?
yeah, just the governance of a family alone is a lot. And as a father, I'm sure, father and husband, you understand it's not a simple, straightforward task to run that ship. And it's just the ship of your family. Many families, it gets complicated. And now that we're such a globalized world today with the internet, it's only getting even more complicated because there's ever evolving and ever growing players entering the stage. As these third world countries become more globally recognized and more influential, it's only going to become more packed as we continue trying to navigate with each other. But I do have a lot of hope, not to quote from Obama, but because of the internet, because of the voice that people have through the internet, there I believe there will absolutely be a better day for all of us in politics globally because of that power. Once upon a time when people had to send mail by, their votes by mail on a donkey and or on a horse and just hope that it makes it there in time, or the slower communication is, the harder it is to hear people, the more difficult it's going to be for us to truly be governed the way we wish to be governed, to truly see the changes that we wish to see. And I know this show is about unity, but part
Hmm.
of the reason I avoid a lot of news media today is because of the encouragement of divisiveness that I've noticed. And if you keep these people divided, if you keep people thinking that this other person wants something I don't want, and you create these enemies, you create camps, we're not going to hear each other. And the amplification of our voice through the internet and through technology becomes weakened and dampened because of that. It's a great
Yeah.
distraction. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's always meant to be that way, but it does do that to us.
One of the reasons that I wanted to do this kind of conversation or contribute, because there are a lot of YouTubers and podcasts that are doing great things, but it's about that. It's about, for example, news media. I believe it has taken a turn for the worse because it does seems like there are news media for the right and there are news media for the left, rather than sharing the truth. Why can't we just hear the truth? I mean, for example, with Joe Biden, wasn't it obvious to a lot of people that he was having some cognitive issues for over a year now? Why couldn't the media be honest about it? Because we are talking about the person in charge of the nuclear button. We're talking about the person in charge of maybe breaking out a war somewhere, is in charge of the military. Why can't we just know the truth? And this is not about Joe Biden. This is just about why can't the media take responsibility? Because you have people in March last year saying that Joe Biden was in the best shape ever, whenever it was obviously not true. And then after the debate, that same person was like, "Oh, I guess we, I guess it wasn't true." I'm shocked at the debate performance, but nobody should have been shocked at the debate performances because it was, you could see obvious things there, and that's part of that's my grievance with the news media. And I do try to watch Fox News. I do try to watch CNN. I tend to stay away from MSNBC. Unfortunately, I think they are just too one way for me. With I try to keep a balance, but I think news media has a role in either dividing or uniting the country. And I do feel that America would never be so divided, or it would not feel so divided, if the news media would just tell you the truth, no matter who it is, whether it is Trump. Trump might do some stuff that are wrong, but a lot of times it's exaggerated, as with facts, things that are facts. For example, the Russian investigation for 3 years. That's all you heard on CNN. That's all you heard on MSNBC for 3 years. It turns out it wasn't true, and that's a fact. That's not my opinion. Why? Why couldn't the media? I mean, yes, there were media on the right that was saying that was fake, but that was probably not because they knew it was fake, but because they wanted it to be fake. So that's the difference. Do you say it is fake because it's the truth, or do you say it is fake because you have an agenda? And I'm not putting this on the left, I'm not putting this on the right. It's just media as a whole. I don't know if what happened is that there's so much money flowing to the news media that now they're not really telling us the news. They're just telling us advertisement for political parties, and we just don't know about it.
Unfortunately, yeah, that seems to be the case. And I remember when I was growing up during the uh, after the 9/11 tragedy, and the subsequent period of news thereafter was kind of life-changing. I mean, my life had just begun, but I'm sure a lot of people of my generation and the generations before, possibly, I remember very distinctly when I came to realize that the 12 faces they would show on the news night after night, after the disastrous attacks, we would see these 12 faces, these 12 photos of the alleged conspirators
Hmm.
who caused this tragedy. And then you fast forward a few years and you find out through, documentaries like Fahrenheit 9/11 that most of those faces you saw were people, random citizens of Afghanistan, just kidnapped in the night by mercenaries, um, and had absolutely nothing to do with anything, didn't know why they were being taken out of bed at night, and just wake up in, Guantanamo Bay. Is pretty traumatizing, and it definitely damages the relationship between citizen and news outlet. That trust is for me from very young had already been pretty um, deteriorated because of that. But then you look back further, and it's actually not uncommon in U.S. history. It's not uncommon in most political history to sway people during times of crisis, especially. For example, forget which president. I believe Woodrow Wilson. Was it Wilson?
And
I know
which
he was in a
president?
wheelchair.
No, that was Roosevelt then.
No, Roosevelt was in. There was a I want to say it was Wilson who had undergone a stroke while he was in office.
Hmm.
And this was like about his third year in already. He had undergone a stroke and it had left him pretty catatonic. And his wife actually assumed most of his duties, and most of the nation, as like citizens, we did not know. And a lot of the politicians in office did not know. The Congress
Yeah.
did not
So
know.
then it couldn't have been Roosevelt then. I might be wrong then, because Roosevelt was kind of, yes, he looked really in bad shape
No,
towards the end of World War II, but he was still having conversation with Stalin and Churchill. So it couldn't have been Terry Roosevelt. So I want to make sure we clear that up.
not Roosevelt. No, neither of the Roosevelts. But
Hmm.
I believe it was Wilson. But I'm sure someone in the comments, please do correct, fact check always.
Let's see.
Um,
We're not getting, with this is a small channel, so we don't have a lot of people watching right now. But I know they will watch as the video is shared later on.
But
So, but
his
then,
wife
but
had assumed those duties, and it was encouraged by the very few people around in the White House who knew that she was, sitting in on these meetings because he couldn't, not just because he was busy. And she made a lot of final decisions. She drafted a lot of opinions on his behalf until his time in office was over. And this was to preserve America's confidence in the leadership.
mm,
And we do that a lot. So I guess the same thing happened with Biden. We wanted to preserve the people's confidence in the leadership, although he already had the most historically low approval rate. So I don't know what we were preserving. Even more perplexing is why I didn't understand, because I didn't want to consume media. I didn't want to. I don't like to be lied to. I don't
Hmm.
invite these things into my life. Um, but I couldn't understand why was a person pulling out of a presidential race due to failure of faculties if they're going to continue to complete their term.
Correct. That doesn't make sense, right?
I mean, I don't know what the lie is. I can't tell you what the truth is, but I know that's not it.
They could have taken
That's
the
all I know.
they could have taken the opportunity to make Harris the first black president, right? And woman president.
That's true. They could have subbed her in from that very moment, but they chose not to for whatever strategic reasons. Perhaps it was better for the race. I don't know, but it wasn't better for logic because I don't have to know what the truth is. I just know what you're telling me, isn't it?
Well, I actually think the Democrats would have been much better off if in 2020 they would have picked somebody like Amy Klobuchar to instead of Biden because they knew they were going to face that problem, and they maybe they thought that Biden was just going to step out very early on so they could have a primary, but
Mm,
but they didn't think about it really well because how could you have a primary when you have the first black woman vice president right there that supposedly she's the one that would take over. So they put themselves in a tough spot, and so they deserve whatever came to them because they definitely had a lot better candidate. Because I'm telling you, way before 2020, people were already noticing stuff going on with Joe Biden. Maybe they got confused because Joe Biden always had a tendency to have a lot of issue with misspeaking, to put it lightly. But a lot of people were talking about how he probably was going to struggle as a president, and he was doing much better, obviously, in 2020. But he deteriorated pretty fast after he became president, and then they were in a tough situation. But I think the Democrat did. I think they helped themselves a lot by replacing him uh,
mm,
by Kamala Harris because he was behind by 3 points in the general in average polling in Real Clear Politics, and you know that Trump always did at least 1 or 2 points better than the polling.
mhm.
So he might have been 5 points ahead of Biden in July, let's say, after the debate. And during the election, he was only like maybe half a point at average ahead of Kamala Harris. But he actually won by like 1.6 percentage point. So I think that if they would have not replaced Joe Biden, they probably would have had the Republican would probably had a 235 seats majority in the House.
I definitely think that the staffers and the campaign staff, they tend to underestimate the human ability to recognize bullshit, if you pardon my French. There is something within, I believe, all of us that is able to recognize authenticity. And I am certainly not a personal fan of Donald Trump, person to
Mhm.
person, but he is regrettably extremely authentic. And you may not like what he's saying, but
Mhm.
you know he said what he meant to say, as opposed to some people say what they want you to hear them say, you know.
Uh,
That these people don't lie. I'm sure Donald Trump, he lies plenty, but not in a way where he's stepping out of himself. He's always being himself.
Yeah, I think if you read his book, the deal making book, how to make a deal. I think if you I didn't read the whole book, but I read. Honestly, I didn't read the whole book, but I know what the book is about. Making the deal, the art of the deal. But
Yes.
if you know Trump a little bit from way back then, from the 70s, 80s, you would probably know that he's always going to exaggerate. That's just him. So and always he's going to ask for crazy stuff so he could get what he really wants. He doesn't want what he's asking for. He will settle for much less. But that's the art of the deal for him.
That's how
And
you haggle.
yeah, and also the fact that I think he's a big fan of the law of attraction in some
Mm.
kind of way. So he'll never admit defeat. He'll never admit that he was wrong. And I think he took the law of attraction too seriously, because I don't think there's anything wrong with apologizing when you know you were wrong. But I agree with you that he's not the best personality. He's not a role model for my children. But I think, and I do see a difference between women and men, how they feel about those kind of stuff. And I noticed that about, like, in the Dominican Republic, when we had a president that was very vocal and say crazy stuff, women had a lot more issue with that than men. So like men, I think we tend to be not so much emotional with those kind of things, and we focus more on the policy. Do we agree with his policies? So obviously, this time around, the majority of the American people agree with his policies. And I have to admit, I did vote for Trump because of policy. Not that I like, I mean, I actually think he's very funny a lot of times. So I got past the noise already. In
Mm.
2015, he was not my guy. He was not my choice. But I really did not go for Hillary Clinton either. She had a lot of baggage, and that's why I don't think Democrats need to worry about America not being ready for a woman president. I think they are ready for a woman president. I think it was more difficult for America to have a black president than a woman president, and we already had that. My feeling is that we didn't have good choices so far. So I think if it was Amy Klobuchar or somebody else, maybe Whitmer, they could have probably beaten Trump. If it wasn't Hillary Clinton in 2016, I think they probably could have beaten Trump. But Hillary Clinton had too much baggage. That's my feeling. I don't think it's because she was a woman. That's my opinion. You have to analyze that Kamala Harris had a hard time explaining herself. She didn't have a clear vision for what she wanted to do. She avoided long conversation, casual conversation. Like Trump will have no problem going to Joe Rogan and having a 3-hour conversation. So people knew that he had something up here to at least have a 3-hour conversation with somebody. So I don't blame that on Kamala Harris being a woman. I don't think she was ready for this. What is your opinion on
I would say she's not as good of a liar. I,
that?
I don't mean to insult either of their character. I comment on what I witnessed and what I've observed studying with them with time. She's not as good of a liar. She doesn't work as quickly as Trump's been doing it his whole life. You can tell. You can
Hmm.
see in the way he moves. He's talked like this his whole life. He has crafted and mastered it.
Hmm.
His imagination, he can get to engage immediately the moment you give him a question. And he loves to entertain. He enjoys it. And when you give someone a task that they enjoy, it's not work. It's not work anymore, and they can go
Cor-
on and on forever. He
correct.
enjoys that. I don't know that Kamala does because it seems like she's doing a dance, very similar with Clinton. And that baggage, we've seen, the past administration, she's been a part of the past policies, she's been a part of things that have happened maybe under the current that we didn't find out till some years later that she was a part of. And all of that makes it harder to swallow what you say now because it's different. And I can want to believe you. That doesn't mean I do. Whereas Trump, it's pretty face value that it's just talk. But
Yeah,
it's
but
the,
don't
the
you think that Democrats have a lot to do with him winning? Because let's say he did some bad things and they went after him, but they went after him for so many things that then everybody started believing that it was just all political. I mean, you even have a senator that is a Democrat saying that it was definitely political. The only case that they got him with something was in New York, and that's the least likely of all the cases that everybody felt. I would say the majority of objective Democrat or legal analysts, They say that case should have never been brought in New York. And Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania, he said it was definitely political. Uh, so I think that they did overdid it. They went after him for so many things that it backfired because then nobody else believed him. I personally believe that after they went after him for 3 years with the Russian investigation, and
Mhm.
they only charged Hillary Clinton $8,000 for coming up with that, and no, nobody even heard about that. So after they went after him for 3 years with a very major accusation, I mean, that's a major accusation that you are a traitor to your own country as a president, as a president. And once that came out that it was not real, that Hillary Clinton was the culprit, I don't think they had the right to go after him anymore, unless it was for something definitely. But when you accuse him of overvaluing his property, like Mar-a-Lago, and I can ask for my house whatever I want. It's up to the bank to give it to me or to the buyer to give it to me. But
That's true.
they sold a property that was there. It has no buildings on it, right next to him, and it was $200 million. How could an empty lot be worth $200 million and then Mar-a-Lago be only worth $18 million? So they went after him for stuff that everybody with common sense agree that it was fake. They should have gone after him for real stuff, for the real stuff, not everything that they could uh, come to mind. I know that anybody else but Trump, without funding, without money, he would have never won the election. They would have drowned him.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. And I don't know that I agree that these things were fake. Um,
Most of them
I
were.
think what was surprising, what makes it so surprising how much they went after him wasn't that they didn't have to come up with things. He was already doing plenty of things people on the books are not supposed to do. But he's not the kind of person, people of his caliber in American society are not typically sought after to rectify those kinds of wrongs. It's very likely, in my personal opinion, not knowing much about Floridian real estate, that this empty lot next to Mar-a-Lago was just as overpriced as his. They both inflated their values. It's a common practice in certain circles to inflate these numbers, get as much as you can. Don't look at the official appraisal, just look at me, look here, and sign the dotted line, and that's how it goes.
But
But normally we don't go after these
I
people.
don't think banks are that stupid though. The banks were not complaining. The banks were happy to do business with him, and they were happy with that deal. So why does a judge have to go after him? But you have to realize something. This was the former president of the United States. Why would you want to do it with something that is not crystal clear? Because I don't care if the 200 million lot was overpriced, but if you have that, you can't go after Trump for saying that Mar-a-Lago was worth $500 million if an empty lot was sold for $200 million.
What makes it disingenuous is to go after the one. That's what makes it disingenuous. That's what makes it purely political. Because if
Hmm.
it really was about right and wrong, everyone who participates in these kinds of activities needs to be sought after and it needs to be rectified. If it truly is, because in those kind of legal cases, it is the people who is in the plaintiff position. This is a case for the people and for their benefit because the people have been wronged um, by avoiding taxes or all kinds of things. But we're not truly looking for justice for the people. We're just looking to smear this name. And yeah, he may be doing these things. He may truly be doing all these terrible things, but it's disingenuous when we only seek rectification and justice in order to smear him.
Especially when the district attorney who went after him had himself said 2 years prior that he couldn't go after Trump for that case because he had no merits. It's pretty tough, and only after he ran for president again did they go after him. So
And
you
suddenly
can
there was merit.
you kind of get my point, right? That even if it was true, they made it look too political.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, it was one of those cases where they created his win. They made the win for him because they turned him into a martyr. By sending everything they had on this one thing, you turn him into a martyr, into a symbol of rebellion and defiance in the name of independence, individuality, etc., etc. Um, I mean, my personal opinion is everyone who's doing these wrong things should pay for doing these wrong things. I don't want to see focus on one person. What does that do for, that's not going to stop everyone else who's also doing it.
What do you think about Joe Biden pardoning people who were on death row? Uh, even for murders, for rapes and stuff like that. Like, why waste your time with that? And then I never seen this happen before. As Trump was commencing the inauguration speech, he didn't even know that Joe Biden had pardoned most of his family ahead of any lawsuit. Nothing. They haven't been accused of anything. They haven't been found guilty of anything, which is normally where you pardon people after they did something wrong, if you feel that it wasn't totally clear, let's say. But he pardoned his whole family right now, so they can't go after them.
And that's a logistic question. How exactly do you pardon an innocent party? How
Yeah.
does one, on paper, how do you pull that off? And I think that's part of what is feeding and keeping the divisiveness in this country alive, because obviously that doesn't make sense. And people are going to try and fill in. It's just what humans do. Where we don't see logic, we try to create logic. And that's where imagination comes in. And we can all put in all the different things we might think might be happening. And that creates all these divisive camps. But because it's something so important, like how law is applied in this country, how justice is sought out in this country, that's so significant that we can't just ignore it. We can't just agree to disagree. It's going to continue to fester until people can't even talk to each other, sit across from the table from one another anymore.
Do you think that they get away with a lot of stuff? I think both sides gets away with a lot of corrupt stuff. And the reason why a lot of us get divided is because we kind of stop listening to the other side. We just listen to one side. If I'm a Republican, I try to listen to things that make me keep believing what I believe. If I'm a Democrat, I want to listen to stuff that make me believe that Democrats are the good people. But I don't think that Democrats will get away with a lot of stuff if Republicans were clean. You know what I mean? Like they know each other.
Of course they know each other. They're at the same parties doing the same deals.
That's
Just
why they would we would have a clean party. Neither party would get away with doing crazy stuff if the other side was clean. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So that's the problem we have, and we have to tell people. I think we have to agree to disagree. I have very hard disagreement with my own family, with brothers, with sisters, trust me, we have heated arguments. And if I can have a heated argument with my own sister, with my own brother, don't you think people who are strangers will disagree on a lot of things? But if we
Yeah.
don't agree that everybody's gonna have different opinion, respect, like we have to not call the other side stupid because they might have some. I'm not a socialist, right? But a lot of people believe 100% with good intention that socialism is good for this country. And as long as you want the best for this country, I don't have a problem with you being a socialist or even a communist. I don't agree with you, but I have to agree to disagree with you. I can't call you stupid because of that. I mean, and what I'm getting at that is that a lot of people on the left, I have to say, and on the right too, they call Trump supporter racist, stupid, garbage, and I don't think we're gonna be doing the right thing for the future of this country if the news media, I mean, people who are educated, are calling the other side stupid and garbage. How can we work together that way? Because I I don't want to vote only Republican. I want to be able to vote for the Democratic Party again. But right now, I have to, my opinion, right now, I feel that they went too far on a lot of social issues. I don't have a problem with anybody, no matter what your race, what your gender, whatever you do, that's your life. But I think they went a lot and a lot of pushing a lot of things that they didn't have to. They lost a lot of the Latino vote because of social issues. Trust me. I spoke
Mm,
to a lot of Dominicans who and trust me, I still speak to a lot of Dominicans that they have no idea that it was mostly the left that was pushing social issues like transgender women and men and women's sports and stuff like that. I feel that if the Latino community actually finds out that it is the Democratic Party that is more likely to be pushing these things, they will vote 70% Republicans. So I think Democrat has to learn from this. And Bill Maher, you know Bill Maher, right?
yes.
He's making more sense than everybody else on the left. I mean, he's a true liberal. He believes in freedom of speech. And that's what where I had a lot of issues because if we lose freedom of speech, we lose the country. I need to be able to speak my mind. Right now, this actually I heard good things about Donald Trump for veterans because I mean this is a veterans channel, so I have to speak about that. He's gonna be the veterans who were kicked out of the military because they refused the COVID vaccine. They can be put back into active duty with back
Mm,
pay. And I feel that with the COVID vaccine, there was a lot of issues. I had to be careful. I had to be careful about what I say because I actually got a strike before for mentioning something about the COVID vaccine on YouTube. So I'm sorry, YouTube. Let me put it this way: this is my experience. I'm talking about my experience. I saw a lot of people. My sister-in-law, she almost died after the second shot, after the second puyazo, let's say.
mhm,
My cousin's husband almost died of heart problem. I personally, last year, I had my first issue, major chest pain, and then I had an abnormal EKG. So it sounds like I almost had a stroke or a heart attack.
mm,
And that was the first time in my life. But I'm talking about people that I saw that they were bleeding for weeks after the first shot or after the second shot. So there was a lot of issue with the with you know what I mean. I don't want to say it too
mhm,
much.
mhm.
And so people had legitimate issues with it. Why mandate it? Why make people take something that it was not even approved yet at the time? It was only used for emergency. If it's only for emergency, why force people? So those kind of things
Theoretically,
give me
it was an emergency. Theoretically, it was technically a global epidemic, but a big part of a lot of people's gripe with that medical mandate was not just that, you know, I don't like shots to begin with. I don't like sharp objects. I get really nervous. I always have almost a panic attack when I go to the doctor. But people want to feel that they know. They want to feel that they know what is happening to their body. They want to feel that they know what's being done to them, what's going to happen to them. So when they start having adverse reactions, of course, people can go, well, that's the one thing I don't know about. That's the one thing I question. So I don't trust you. I can't trust you because now I'm seeing these things. And it
yeah.
only sows more mistrust, more division, creating that mandate. They had their reasons. I suppose we should be happy with the results. At the end of the day, most of us are still here. A lot of us lost people along the way, but most of us are still here, and it didn't have to be that way.
No, no,
It
it
could
could
have
have
been
been.
better, perhaps, but I think it's wonderful that these veterans are going to be able to be like reinstated into the force and have that back pay for the time where they didn't voluntarily leave the job; they were forced to
Correct.
leave.
They were forced.
So,
A lot of policemen too. I maybe they'll do the same thing for a lot of the policemen from New York City, from different states.
They should have to, because it doesn't, people are going to fall off and fall into various camps and pit themselves against people by nature if they don't see consistency. And that's part of the problem. Like Democrats going after Donald Trump with all of these legal cases, but not everyone else who does these things. We
Hmm.
don't like inconsistency, similar to the murder that took place in New York City, by a Mr. Luigi. I don't remember his
Luigi,
last
yeah.
name. Uh, a lot of people, unfortunately or unfortunately, didn't care that it happened, that this person lost their life, because somehow, all of a sudden, New York City Police Department has all these resources to pull out to find this guy states away, days after the fact, but we have children that go missing every day,
Yeah.
women and men that go missing every single day. I'm sorry, I will get a little passionate about that, because I don't
I
want to
agree with you. Yeah, I agree with
pull
you.
that off, but you can't find. I don't want to hear about missing children ever. That's my personal take. If you have the means to do that, I should never hear about, well, it's been over 48 hours. We're going to have to stop the search.
Yeah, I just heard a story about some girl in Bayshore, Long Island, that she was kidnapped right out of the neighborhood, and then luckily they found her in on a boat, but she was already raped so many times. It's crazy that we really should be worried about that kind of stuff. They say that we have over 25 million slaves, physical slaves in the world. They say more than any time in history. Why are we not focusing on that? Every country should be working together to stop that, because that is the most. Can even think about that. And by the way, we were waiting on Luis Lopez. He's not in. I think we're not gonna get to Luis this time, but maybe another day. So, what do you hope to see? What is one thing that Trump could do for you that you will start giving him some credit?
Some credit. I feel I do give him credit for the things that he actually does. I just don't feel that he actually does much. Um, he talks much and he signs checks much, but I don't feel he actually does much. And I suppose that's part of being at that level. The president doesn't actually take a lot of the actions. They tell people, they
So,
delegate
so you
the
don't
action.
agree? You don't agree with the remain in Mexico policy for refugee until you verify that you actually need. You
That
agree with
safety.
catching, because remember, after he left office, we have millions and millions of people coming across. And I will tell you from a personal experience, and I might get emotional because I just lost my sister last week for cancer. She had terminal cancer. She was not able to get disability.
Mm,
She had mental health most of her life, and she couldn't work anymore. 2010, 2011 was probably the last year that she actually managed to keep a job, but she worked for 20 years, and she had struggled with mental health most of her life. 2014, 2013, she tried to apply for disability. She got denied. She got denied. She got denied, even though eventually she would end up in the mental hospital for 2 months at a time. Don't you think that somebody like that could get $1,000 a month of disability? Because that's probably all she would have gotten. Why do
unfortunately.
they make it so hard for her who worked here and was a citizen, and they give away $800 a night to illegal? Sometimes, they just caught one of those illegals selling weapons and selling drugs in one of the hotels that the government is paying for. Why do they make it so easy for people? I'm an immigrant myself, and I'm not anti-immigrant. I just want common sense. My
Mm-hmm,
sister, why did they make it so hard for my sister? She had a family. Our family supported her for many years,
mm-hmm,
and she left a 14-year-old son behind. but I'm pretty sure that my sister would like to have some independent. I'm pretty sure she didn't want to be asking us for help. It would have helped
Absolutely.
them a lot to have disability. So that's about common sense, and that's why people give Trump credit, because you say he didn't do much, but it was much harder. After Biden came into office, he said everybody can come, and then we nobody was paying attention to the immigration. Even the New York mayor Adams, he said everybody can come to New York. This is a sanctuary city. But when he actually got the buses over from Texas, he said, "Oh, we can't handle this. We need help. We need help from the federal government. We have too many immigrants right here."
Mm-hmm,
So it's
mm-hmm.
about having common sense. I'm a charitable person. You know me. I like to do charity work, but I can't do more than what I can do. I have to take care of my own children before I help someone else.
Well, the biggest part of that, I think most Americans are charitable people. Most Americans don't want people to go hungry. Most
Correct.
Americans don't want people sleeping on the street. Not just because we don't like, people asking us for money when we're walking around, but also because we recognize that that's not fair, it's not right, it's bad for everybody. It helps no one to have someone sleeping out on the street or in the parks or where have you. Um, we don't want people bum rushing our borders. We don't want our systems overwhelmed. We don't want to further our deficit. I think pretty much every American agrees on these things. The problem is we don't agree on how to do it, and I think we don't agree on how to accomplish it because we're not getting the full story as American citizens. And there is a major disconnect, in my opinion, in the relationship between citizen and government because government forgot who their boss is. We are their boss, but they don't report to us. They are not accountable to us. They don't feel responsible in that way. They feel like, oh, I must make my constituents happy. That's not enough. It's not enough to, I built a building or I started a program. Now you can stop complaining. Don't talk to me anymore or some, what have you. Just
No,
things to pacify people.
we have a lot of we have a lot of homeless veterans. We have a lot of homeless people, American citizens in LA, in San Francisco, in New York.
Mhm,
Why can't we do something about that? I mean, I work with seniors, a lot of them veterans, and a lot of them struggles. So you have to show me that you could take care of your own before you tell everybody come to America illegally through the borders. It used to be more common sense to have illegals. Like if I and I'm telling you, I'm not anti-immigrants. I know a lot of family. I have a brother that came illegally, and he got his green card through the um, Ronald Reagan amnesty in the 80s.
mhm,
You know, and I just want, before it used to be that, oh, I have a friend in the Dominican Republic, let's say, let's try to help him come here.
mhm,
We're going to support him. We're going to try to bring him in. It used to be very easy to pay somebody in the Dominican Republic to let him through, let's say. Now that I'm not saying I did that, but a lot of people did. They pay somebody in the airport in the Dominican Republic because it was harder to get through there. And then when they
mhm.
came to the JFK with a fake with somebody else's green card, they took the chance over here. They pay over there because the inspector were more respectful, maybe too trusty. Oh, they look alike. Or maybe they didn't care. But when we brought somebody in, we took care of them. We gave them a place to stay. We, the family and friends, supported that person,
Mhm.
not an $800 hotel every night, not a prepaid credit card,
On the country's dime.
not a phone. Because if you're paying them
Mhm.
for hotels, then you're taking food stamps away from people that actually need it over here.
Well,
But
you know how the Democratic Party seemed to zero in on Trump with all these legal cases to make a point,
Mhm.
and it actually went against their own point. Um, the busing of all of these immigrants, they talk about, we haven't seen these numbers in years. We've never seen so many people crossing the border like that period, and only that period. And since then, I believe the numbers have gone down significantly. And even more so, the vast majority of illegal immigration takes place via plane, people who stay and
Mhm.
overstay, not people who cross the border illegally. Um, but those numbers were so high because it was just like those legal cases for Trump. It was advantageous for a political narrative. And it did the job of showing, Eric Adams saw, wow, this is really overwhelming. We can't afford this. All these places started to see, wow, we don't have the infrastructure to take this on. And in a way, it helped illuminate the kind of problem that Texas has been dealing with for many years. But
Yeah,
it
well,
was
that's.
an
I'm sorry to
orchestrated.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's the point with Texas. Texas had to deal with millions of immigrants every year, and they say
Mhm.
enough is enough. I got to share the wealth with everybody, and that's
That's
what made it
true.
stand
And
out.
that's fine, but those numbers were inflated, in my opinion. Well, I believe they were inflated. The numbers just say they're higher than ever for that one period, that small period, which also happened to coincide with a period where we had some of the most Russian immigrants coming in at any point. So Russian, Ukrainian, European, Eastern European immigrants rushing over. So it wasn't the typical, Latin American large group, Caribbean group coming in. It was also a vast amount of Eastern Europeans. And somehow Texas just decides, you know what? Now's the period we just don't care. Everyone's crossing, everyone's coming in because we're gonna bust them somewhere.
I have to
So
disagree.
now it's like an open door.
I have to disagree with you on that because uh, just by common sense, if you have a president that tell them, eh, "Come, everybody, come,
Mhm.
borders open." If you say that, you know you're gonna have people take you on your word for it.
Oh,
If you
they
have,
will
if it,
arrive, but that doesn't mean they can cross. That
oh,
doesn't
it
mean they
was
can get
all
through.
they didn't have to run away from the border. All they had to do was, before it used to be that people were afraid of the border patrol. In the Biden's years, you wanted to find the border patrol to hand yourself in, so then you can ask for as a refugee. Uh,
Hmm.
and then they tell you to come back to court in a year, but you never come back to show up. So that's what happened. Y- Common sense will tell you that if, like, again, I'm not saying don't come. I'm just saying if you have a president that says, I'm going to deport you if you come illegally, and you have a president that says, come, everybody, you're going to have more immigrants come when they
Yes,
tell you
but
come.
Biden was not the reason why so many posts were unmanned during that period. During that small period of such high numbers, higher than we've ever seen, apparently, there were so many periods of posts unmanned, just unattended to, not working. Why? Because it didn't serve the purpose. The purpose was, we want to show these states how bad these numbers are. So we will allow more numbers than we did before. We will be more relaxed so that the numbers are higher and it proves the point. I don't think that was necessary. The point would have been proven with the same numbers, in my opinion. But the fact that those numbers spiked and then stopped, that tells me that, very similar to the Donald Trump, we're going to attack you with all these legal cases. So many people are doing the same thing, but we don't go after them.
You
That
don't
that
think
that immigration problem was always a problem, but it was
what? But
theatrical.
why do you feel that Democrats always tend to be more about open borders? Like even Jorge Ramos in Univision, he's like an open border guy. I mean, I know but you don't have to be for open border if you are Latino. But you don't have that doesn't mean that you are anti-immigrants. I just don't agree with having 10,000 people thinking that they could just cross the border or in
I
a
don't think most
caravan.
people think they can. I've never personally crossed the border, but I've heard personal accounts from people who have physically crossed, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It is not the
No.
experience that anyone wants, hopes for, dreams about. it's extremely traumatic, and especially if you're entering a country that's not going to give you mental health care, it probably does a lot more disservice than service in many ways, to put yourself through that experience. Um,
Many women get raped coming through the border. Unfortunately, I know some. And also, I had a friend that came through illegally through the border. He was almost killed by the people crossing him. The what do you call the I now I've now I coyotes,
mm,
coyote.
Coyotes.
Right?
Hmm.
So he was almost killed because he didn't have the funds to pay them.
For
But
his safety.
yeah, but unfortunately, he came here illegally. He got sick. He had a heart problem, and he was in and out of the hospital, and he never took care of himself. He was still taking drugs and stuff like that. So it was a total failure. He came here only to make expenses for the healthcare system, never contributed to anything. Uh, and that's why people have a lot of issues with mass immigration, because I do think that both parties want illegal immigration for poor labor. But I again, control, if they can control it a little bit, that is not falling on the government, that family and friends are taking care of them for a few months until they get
Hmm.
their feet on the
Hmm.
ground. That's I'm okay with, but I don't agree
That's
with.
the legal system.
Yeah, I don't agree
Mhm.
with prepaid credit card. I don't agree with pay phones. I don't agree with paying hotels for them, because
Mhm.
then they'll get used to that and they stay there. I think that we should save those funds for people that actually are verified that they need it, because I run into a lot of people that I wish I could help them with more benefits. So it's not because I'm not. It's not because I don't like social programs. I just think that if it's distributed to the people that actually need it, is
Mhm.
more. There's more to go, and you can take care of people better.
Just to simplify a little bit, in my opinion, the issue of the border, the issue of all this mass immigration and illegal immigration through the border is not something that gets solved at the border. And we've tried that for many, many, many years, many administrations. It does not get solved at the border. It gets solved before the border. It gets solved at where the desperation is born that ignites the fire to put oneself through such a traumatic experience. And I think most of us who are aware of what it's like recognize that's not something people want to do. It's something they feel they have to do. They don't feel they have
Of
a
course, yes.
choice.
I would do it if I was home, if I was in my home country and I was struggling and I had children, I would do whatever I have to do. Just like I know that in Haiti, Haiti is having a hard time right now. So if they can cross the border to the Dominican Republic, they would do it, and I don't blame them for it. But
Hmm.
it's up to each government to take care of their border however they want to. But I don't. It doesn't mean I lose my humanity. Like, I don't agree with mass immigration, but once they're here, I don't. I don't think we should forget our humanity. You know what I mean? Like, we have
Hmm.
to be humanitarian, but I think you have to have control. So, what are you again? I'm hoping that Trump can do something about immigration and maybe secure the border. You don't think the Democrats want to have mass immigration for benefits, like when you do the census? For example, illegal
Hmm.
immigrants are not supposed to vote. They don't vote, right?
Hmm.
But they do count when they do count when they do censor.
Hmm.
So if you have 10 millions of illegals in New York, obviously the electoral college in New York is going to be maintained or grow. So that's still affecting election in some way. Uh,
Hmm.
but so I don't know if that's a reason that Democrats are more lenient. They are more likely to not have a worry about illegal immigration as much as Republicans do. That's my sense. Maybe it's just about messaging. Maybe they take turn. Maybe they decide that you're gonna be anti-immigrant, we're gonna be pro-immigrant. I don't know. Maybe they make a deal between them.
In this world of such confusing, contradictory stories that we hear from different news outlets, I would follow my grandfather's advice. Just say, follow the money. If the problem is still here after all these years, problem is still here, it's not here by accident, it's here by design.
Hmm.
Simple. And again, securing the border is not insecure. The border is secure. The border has posts, the border has officers, the border has regular routine,
You
you
sound
know,
like you sound like Kamala Harris.
I'm kidding.
I couldn't avoid it because she said the same thing. The border is
But
secure.
But the issue starts before the border. The issue started in the instability within these countries to begin with, in the countries these people originate from. It's the problem didn't start at the border. The problem can't be solved at the border. The problems start, in my personal opinion, when the U.S. decided to get all up involved in Latin America's government business and say, you know what, you look like you could use some independence. You look like you could use a canal. You look like you could use some connections, some funding. You look like you could use some help. And
Like Haiti.
well, Haiti, I don't mean to any offense to anybody, but Haiti I think is obviously an example because no other country this world by and large, many continents across have experienced European colonialism, but nobody has quite the experience that Haiti does. And I think that's because Haiti is an example to all nations to never repeat what Haiti does through great violence against their masters. Don't
Yeah.
assert yourself that way. Don't free yourselves that way. And I don't know if this is a sentiment that perhaps some of the people in Venezuela can relate to right now with the governance that they're dealing with, and a lot of the other, more dictator-like governance happening in Latin America and other third world countries. But the powers that be don't want you to assert your power. They don't want you to do that. They'd rather you run and create a problem at the US border than try to defy them where they are. So
Yeah.
they don't have a problem with you running away.
The problem with Haiti is that they don't have a lot to offer, I guess. If there was a lot of oil there, you would probably see the United States. Unfortunately, you would probably see the United States go there and take care of things. This bunch of terrorists, supposedly, that are all the gang members who are
Hmm.
tearing things apart, they would not have a chance against the army if there was a lot of resources there for reciprocity to the United States. Unfortunately, because but France actually does have. I think France. I mean, it did happen a long time ago, but France does have a lot of responsibility for what happened in Haiti because I mean, it's pretty sick when they got liberated from France, and then the French people say, "We're not going to invade you if you pay us for 100 years the debt for your freedom. We lost you as a property, so now you got to pay us for your freedom." That really made them make mistake. That made Haiti invade the Dominican Republic for 22 years because they thought by doing that they might pay the debt. Well, actually, I have to be wrong. They did invade. I think that the invasion had nothing to do with the debt. I think the debt came after. My memory is failing me here, but I don't think it was. I don't think they invaded Dominican Republic in order to pay the French people. But France does have a lot of responsibility. They did him pretty bad. So let's end it with this. Let me show you this highlights from Donald Trump's inauguration speech, and then I'll just ask you for what you hate about it, what you don't like. I mean, this is not the whole speech, so there's a lot of things that are probably not going to be in context. So, but we'll do what we can. Let's see. Let's pull this back here, and let's highlight this. And where is this? I want to get you and me. Why can't I do this? There. Well, let's just run this right this.
The golden age of America begins right now. A recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal. From this moment on, America's decline is over. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. But I felt then and believe even more so now that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. Today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. Today, I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken.
Okay, so let's remove this from the scene. And let's get back here. So tell me something you liked. Find something you liked, find something you don't like.
I like that he was able to say concrete ideas of what is to come. He normally doesn't. They're usually, like the beginning of the clip used a lot of his normal speech, how he normally speaks with general statements, wide brush, and those keywords, those trigger words. But towards the end, we got to hear actual concrete ideas, which was a little refreshing. I don't know if you follow the lore of the Lord of the Rings.
I have watched them. I was disappointed with the ending, so I haven't really followed much after that.
Including Rings of Power, or
oh, wait a minute. I'm thinking of the wrong one. I'm thinking of Thrones, Game of Thrones.
yeah.
No.
Very
Yes,
similar.
Ring of Powers. I've been watching. I like it. Yes, but my memory is very bad, so it's like I have to watch it a few times to remember.
Oh yes, I'm inspired now to go back and rewatch all the movies. But I hear him speak, and I am reminded of Adar. And I don't want to spoil for anybody who hasn't finished season 2 yet. but I believe that his words, Trump's words, towards the end of this clip here, will come to pass for America in a similar fashion as Adar got his children thanks to Sauron.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he was president before. Uh, I think that a lot of people call him Hitler. I mean, I think that's a little disingenuous because Hitler did so many things, and that's a fact. I don't think Trump is even close to doing stuff
Oh,
that
let's not
Hitler.
even go there, because he did lose a court case about lying about
Yeah, but
sexually
listen,
assaulting
listen. A
somebody.
court case is not killing 6 million Jews.
The court case was about him lying about sexually assaulting a woman, and he lost because it's proven he sexually assaulted her.
No, it's
But
not
because
proven. It's not proven.
then how did he
He
lose?
he didn't lose. He was not found guilty of sexually
Oh no, he
abusing.
can't. He can't be because
It
of
was
the
more like defamation.
yes, the defamation was that he lied. He says that her claim of him sexually assaulting her, as she wrote in her book, is a lie. But it turns out him calling her a liar is the lie because it actually happened. But because we have statute of limitations, they can't actually go back and try him for the sexual assault.
No,
That's
I
already
I
past
I,
its
I think you
limitation.
got to go back to the news source and maybe watch both points on there. But I don't remember it that way. I mean, the first they gave her 85 million, $11 million, and then $85 million. It just sounded like another of those Trump cases. But
Well,
anyway,
the,
we're running a little long. I love to have you back as new topics come on. Let's. I mean, you have feelings, you have fears that he might be a dangerous man, a dangerous president. So let's come back a few times, and see how things are going. Maybe he'll do something. What if, he already did something good with the hostages in Israel? That would have never happened. Everybody agrees that would have never happened without him even speaking about it. And let's see if he does something with Ukraine. Maybe he'll stop that war. Maybe he'll stop it in a good way. I don't want Ukraine to lose half the country, though. But let's see what happens there. It's better to talk to our enemies than throwing missiles at them.
absolutely,
And one
absolutely.
thing, one thing Trump was very accused of, that he loved war, that he was going to be a warmonger, but that never materialized. He took care of ISIS very fast. Obama couldn't take care of ISIS in years, and they were just growing and growing, and he took care of them in 6 weeks. My cousin, I asked my cousin, what did he do different? He said, no, nothing. He just told us to do our job. You know,
A warmonger might be the wrong word. He certainly incites war. Absolutely. That doesn't mean it's
but he,
intentional
ne- but
incitement.
he never. I think but he never had a war. He never had a war when he was pressed. He never created a war.
The unity that you call for now is because of decisiveness that has been thoroughly engaged and riled up due to Donald Trump. Whether he intended it, whether he personally instigates it, that's doesn't really matter. It is due to him, unfortunately,
Actually,
at the end of the
actually,
day.
I actually remember it differently. I think we got divided during 2012 is when I remember things falling apart. Ferguson was the first trigger, and I think part of that was when Obama went after the policeman without having any of the facts. And then we actually have black witnesses that said no, he was charging the policeman. So I think if Obama would have waited until he had all the evidence before he spoke, things would not have gotten out of hand. Because remember, the hands up movement, all that stuff came under Obama. And so even before Trump came on, I think actually Trump happened because of things that Obama did. I don't think people would have looked for Trump if not for what happened during the Obama years. So, and this is why it's important to discuss this kind of stuff, because once you realize, social media came as a shock to everybody. Oh wow, I didn't know my neighbor thought that way. I didn't know
Mhm,
he felt that way. Oh
mhm.
wow. And then people started thinking that the neighbor were evil or they were really bad people, but they just have different opinions. And social media came as a shock to a lot of us. But now comes the time to realize, no, we all think differently, even though we should have known that a long time. Like I was telling you, I have fights within my own family. So we should agree to disagree and we get along much better. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for being here with us, Charlize. And I wish you the best, and let's come back in a few months and see how things are going. Okay?
This owes me a conversation, Master Sergeant.
Oh yes, you gotta tell Master Sergeant Luis Lopez that he left us hanging today. When I go to Texas, Master Sergeant Luis Lopez, you owe me a steak. Take care, everybody. See you next time. Let's see.